In Saudi Arabia, Allied ground forces make final preparations for an offensive that the Pentagon signals is now at hand.
Before, we've reached a turning point in the operation.
This is NBC Nightly News, reported by Garrick Utley. Tonight, America at war.
Good evening. And so the deadline has passed. Saddam Hussein has rejected the American and Allied ultimatum at noon today Eastern Time. Iraqi invasion forces tonight remain dug in their positions in Kuwait and in Iraq, and an all-out ground campaign designed to dig them out is now at hand. The green light has been given. And today, one U.S. military official said, quote, "You can safely say it will be bigger than anything since World War II." We begin with Fred Francis at the Pentagon. Fred?
Garrick, senior officials tell NBC News, quote, "There is no time left. No time at all for Saddam's military machine." The official said the ground war is now in General Norman Schwarzkopf's hands.
The president was quite direct yesterday in telling them what the terms were. They didn't accept those terms, and now they'll live with it.
On this 38th day, the most lethal land army ever assembled in so small an area has loaded its weapons, say the senior sources, and soon, very soon, that Allied army will, quote, end Saddam's threat to the Middle East. Today, Allied forces stepped up the pounding of Iraqi positions to soften the advance into Kuwait.
A considerable additional amount of violence is available to the commander should it be decided to use that violence. If the ground attack occurs, there will be no doubt in anybody's mind, and especially in the minds of the Iraqi soldiers, that it has occurred.
And today, the U.S. claimed that 39% of Iraq's tanks had been killed, 32% of Iraqi armored carriers are destroyed, 48% of Saddam's artillery is now gone, and more than 15%, or over 80,000 Iraqi soldiers, are casualties. Smoke obscures a third of the Kuwaiti battlefield. From more than 200 sabotaged and burning oil wells and other facilities, fully 25% of Kuwait's industry. But officials say the scorched earth action by Iraq is insignificant compared to the slaughter going on in Kuwait City, where Iraqi troops have orders to round up 40,000 Kuwaiti citizens for torture and execution.
The reports we're seeing now are in the numbers of thousands. I've seen 2,000, as many as 10,000. Arrests at arbitrary checkpoints, torture, in some cases mutilation, certainly rape. The numbers currently available to us on the order of 2,000, 10,000.
The rescue of Kuwait City, say senior sources, is the highest priority of the Arab forces who are tonight shoulder to shoulder with Americans facing the Iraqi trenches. And as the ground war nears, another harsh warning from the Pentagon on the Iraqi use of chemical weapons.
We have said here repeatedly, and this is being listened, this is being monitored in Baghdad, that those commanders will be held personally responsible for use of chemical weapons.
One Pentagon official said, Garrick, any Iraqi officer who orders the use of chemical weapons on the battlefield will probably face a war crimes tribunal. Garrick?
Fred, of course, those chemical weapons are a big worry to American GIs, but how big a military threat are they in the eyes of the commanders there?
Much less a threat now that the United States and the Allies have destroyed almost half of the artillery pieces, because that's the method in which Iraq uses to deliver, in artillery shells, deliver the chemical weapons. He has 10 kinds of artillery that he can do it. The way the U.S. will fight that is move very fast on the battlefield. As soon as the chemicals are fired, the United States will back off, call in air cover to knock out the artillery. So it's a threat, but not a serious one.
All right, Fred, what happens if after a ground offensive starts, the Iraqis begin to withdraw their military units? Will we continue to attack them?
The way the war plan is written, as I understand it, as senior military officials tell me, the United States will encircle the battlefield. In other words, cut off a withdrawal. The purpose here, Garrick, they do not want Saddam's army to pull out.
And finally, Fred, the weather. Weather is very important in any kind of a military operation. Is it favorable tonight?
We are told the weather is good tonight and tomorrow, Garrick.
All right, Fred Francis, the Pentagon, thank you. Iraq remains as defiant as ever tonight. The vice chairman of Saddam Hussein's Revolutionary Command Council in Baghdad ridiculed the ultimatum issued by President Bush yesterday and said Iraq is, in his words, fully ready to face the aggressors on the battlefield. Tom Aspel is in Baghdad, which once again came under heavy bombardment today. He reports under Iraqi censorship.
Tonight, 30 minutes before President Bush's ultimatum expired, warplanes attacked Baghdad. They defy Iraqi ground fire now, bombing the very heart of the capital. Further south, in the dark, 500,000 Iraqi soldiers are waiting for the final battle. All day here, there's been a sense that the phony war is now over. There's hardly a family in Baghdad which doesn't have someone on the front lines. People have been thinking about the enormous firepower the U.S. and its allies are concentrating on their men so far from home. Baghdad and nearly all of Iraq has been bombed to a standstill. There's no fuel to generate electricity and no running water. People have lived in these conditions for more than a month. There are no bright horizons anymore. Iraqis feel abandoned. There has been no Arab uprising to support them, no response to their plea for the Islamic world to launch a jihad, a holy war against the Americans and their allies. Iraq stands alone.
Baghdad radio has been continuing its defiant tone, saying Iraqi men do not bend in the face of threats and reminding soldiers of their duty to fight to the finish. Garrick?
Tom Aspel in Baghdad. Well, as we've already reported, the deadline came and went today without Saddam Hussein even blinking. Before it passed at 12 noon Eastern time in this country, there was a last-minute flurry of diplomatic activity, public diplomacy, both in Moscow and also at the United Nations, designed to get George Bush to bend at least a little bit. He didn't. We go now to John Cochran at the White House. John?
Garrick, the president was at Camp David when the noon deadline passed. He had just finished a half-hour conversation with Mikhail Gorbachev. Later, the White House said Gorbachev told Bush he would ask the United Nations to review the Soviet peace plan. Still later, we learned from Moscow that Gorbachev asked for more than that. Soviet spokesman Vitaly Ignatenko said Gorbachev asked President Bush to delay the ground offensive for another day or two. The spokesman said Gorbachev wants more time because he thinks Iraq's attitude toward Bush's ultimatum will be changing. But as the Iraqi foreign minister was leaving Moscow to return to Baghdad, he spoke only of the Soviet plan.
The Revolution Command Council issued a statement saying that Iraq supports the Soviet initiative and it appreciates the Soviets' efforts to reach a peaceful settlement to the situation.
At the UN, Allied diplomats dismissed reports that Iraq might be softening. Although diplomacy seems to have failed, the U.S. ambassador said efforts will continue.
The President of the Security Council will be discussing with each of the members of the Council individually, as well as with the Iraq and Kuwait, how the Council might proceed next.
The Kuwaiti ambassador was feeling good, not about the chances for peace, but about the chances for a quick, decisive ground war.
Well, we are seeing now the light in the tunnel, and we hope really that the day after tomorrow, which is the 25th of February, the Independence Day of Kuwait, will be celebrating the liberation of my country. They're inside our liberated land.
White House officials have very mixed feelings tonight. They dread the casualties that a ground war may bring. There's also a feeling of relief, a feeling that Saddam Hussein is about to suffer a blow from which he can never recover. Garrick?
Well, John Cochran, you raise the subject of casualties. We've been told over the last several days of just how severely damaged the Iraqi armed forces have been. Does the White House expect the ground campaign to be costly?
Well, they've never talked in terms of actual numbers. They say it will be quick, very quick indeed. That comes from the top officials here in the White House, and quick, of course, would mean limited casualties, Garrick.
John, today the president stiffed, if I may use that inelegant word, the Soviet leader Gorbachev. He did not grant any more time for the Soviet peace effort. Is that going to cause any problems between Bush and Gorbachev, between Washington and Moscow?
I don't think so, because there's been this rather exaggerated minuet as they try with exquisite care not to harm each other's feelings, not to hurt each other's feelings. The test will come, however, at the United Nations, where the Soviets will be presenting their peace plan, and the Soviets, if their rhetoric there is somewhat condemnatory of the United States, that could cause troubles. I don't think that's going to happen. The Soviet spokesman said today that Moscow is still behind the UN efforts to get Saddam out of Kuwait. George Bush thanked Gorbachev publicly for his efforts, whatever the president may think privately. Garrick.
All right, John Cochran at the White House, thank you. The war already has caused a great deal of suffering for the Iraqi people. A team of World Health Organization doctors just back from Iraq is warning of epidemics there unless antibiotics and other medications are delivered soon to the Iraqi capital. The doctors are especially fearful of cholera and typhoid because so many people now have only dirty water to drink in Iraq because of the war. As we cover the conflict and those caught up in it, we will go next to the troops in the war zone, close to combat.
Let us pray.
And in this country, we'll visit the families and friends of those who will do the fighting, support back home, but also worries.
The ruler of all things visible and invisible.
That's life. You little monkey face, you.
You didn't look so hot yourself a few months ago.
When the medical crisis is gone, the bills should be too. Aflac supplemental insurance helps close the gaps in your health insurance, like deductibles, co-payments. Aflac lets you get on with your life.
Grandpa came through a lot to see you.
She's my girl.
Life supplies the surprises. Aflac supplies the peace of mind.
The stress headache. Relentless. Tightening. Stretching. When the pain has you at the limit, take Anacin. Anacin. For aspirin-free Anacin 3. Strong pain relief for today's stress headache.
In weather this raw, don't take chances, take chapstick. This infrared camera compares lips sealed with chapstick and lips without chapstick. Chapstick seals in moisture to heal and prevent chapped lips. Don't take chances, take chapstick.
For the American troops in Saudi Arabia, this was, as you might well imagine, a trying day, an emotional one as they passed the deadline and faced the prospect of a ground war, their ground war. Some soldiers were writing letters home before heading off on a cross-border raid into Kuwait. And one of them said he wrote a dozen letters today because, in his words, you never know when it's going to be the last goodbye. Then they went into enemy territory. NBC's Gary Matsumoto is a pool reporter for the U.S. television networks there.
This was no ordinary sunset for the men of the 24th Mechanized Infantry Division. You could see it in their eyes. Like the needle on a compass, they showed just where these soldiers would soon be heading, across the border into enemy-held territory.
Let's get some chow down their guts. Showtime! Look out! Over here.
It's clear. The men on this patrol had never before fired their weapons in combat. They admitted to feeling jittery.
Of course they're scared. We all are, you know, like I said, to a certain degree, but I just feel that everybody's really ready to get this going, you know.
The back of the Bradley was cramped, the ride bone-shaking, but no one was in a hurry to get out.
I'm going to take right side security at first, all right? You're going to leave me once you get out.
They'd arrived at the berm, a wall of sand that straddles the border for hundreds of kilometers, cresting over 40 feet high in some parts.
You got to go knock it down or not.
Another patrol had crossed over earlier. They were on the target's flank, waiting to pounce. These soldiers were posted on what the Army calls overwatch. They'd supply the firepower if the other unit got in trouble. Scouts of the 24th Mechanized Infantry Division have been using thermal sensors to scan an Iraqi emplacement not far from the other side of this berm. They've discovered it's hot, which means Iraqi soldiers are believed to be present. The decision, destroy the target with an artillery strike. All it took was one shot with a 155mm howitzer. Army engineers could begin gouging their way through the berm, carving a path for a patrol of armored Humvees. The cross-border attacks are growing more extensive and more bold. Amidst the rubble, the patrol found a few scattered Arabic magazines, some ammunition. There were no Iraqis in sight.
It's Miller time.
There was good reason for the smiles.
Anytime you have everybody brought back in one piece and with all their equipment and in good spirits, I think it's a good mission. So everything went pretty well.
Gary Matsumoto, NBC News, with the 24th Mechanized Infantry Division, Northern Saudi Arabia.
And now, back to this country and the worry as well as the waiting. Everyone, of course, feels it, but it is strongest among those who have relatives and friends over there in the Gulf. People who live in communities near military bases with units there. Jim Cummins went to one of them today as the deadline passed at noon.
Killeen, Texas is the home of Fort Hood and 40,000 ground troops, half of them in the war zone tonight. At MJ's barbershop, disagreement over the need to fight a ground war against Saddam Hussein. Retired Sergeant Major Wilford Hills.
And I think the only way to do what needs to be done is to go in there and do what we do best. And that's fight a ground war and teach them a lesson.
But his barber, Melvin Woodard, is concerned about the troops from Fort Hood.
As a civilian and friends, a lot of guys in there, I hate to see it happen. I like to see a lot of them come back and, you know, in one piece.
At the local Sears store, customers were learning that the noon deadline had passed. Saddam is not pulling out. A full-scale ground war is likely. Ken Erickson retired from the Army.
We should have done this 6 months ago.
But William Seals is not so sure. His Alabama National Guard unit has been called up, and if it's a long ground war, he's likely to see some action.
When I got time to think about it, really, give me butterflies.
But for now, the people in Killeen most affected by the ground war are the women and children who have relatives over there. A group of Army wives gathered for a meal and talked about the danger for their husbands on the front lines. Karen Blackwell's husband, Thomas, is in the 1st Cavalry Division.
Nobody, I don't care who it is, nobody other than Saddam, if anyone, deserves to die.
Let us pray.
But most of these women believed for a long time that a ground war was inevitable.
Shield them from harm's way. Grant unto us their safe return. Through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Jim Cummins, NBC News, Killeen, Texas.
And in a moment, a look at the coming ground war. How might it be fought?
Ask me what counts most after 40 years in the car business, and I don't have to think twice. 1, the minivans. We invented them. 2, driver's airbags in every car we build in this country. What do we do for an encore? Put them together. Minivans with a driver's side airbag. Nobody else is doing it. You still have to use your seatbelt with a minivan airbag, but it will save lives. A lot of lives.
In 13 cities in 10 countries across the Pacific, they're playing our song. United Airlines Royal Pacific Service, rededicated to giving you the service you deserve, halfway around the world. Come fly the friendly skies.
We're about to prove a simple point. On the left, a steak wrapped in saran wrap. On the right, both Reynolds and Glad wraps. Now, knowing a tiger won't eat what a tiger can't smell, which one do you think holds in odor and freshness better? Saran wrap.
The same medicine found in the prescription drug Motrin. Same as in Motrin, in non-prescription strength.
If you want the same medicine found in prescription Motrin, wouldn't it just be simpler to ask for Motrin IB? Non-prescription strength Motrin IB. Accept no alternatives.
On Focus this evening, the ground war. How will it be fought by American and Allied forces? James Dunnigan, our military analyst, is with us now. Mr. Dunnigan, we already have some reports, indications that electronic jamming has commenced. That's significant, isn't it?
Yes, the electronic jamming is little more than a lot of electronic noise, which renders the Iraqi Army's radios useless. All of the combat units along this front still have radios, and they use it to communicate with each other to find out who is attacking what, and also, most importantly, to coordinate the use of their artillery.
But once we have the jamming, it means the ground attack is coming quickly after that.
Yes, because the Iraqis have been trained that once the jamming starts, if they're given 12 or 24 hours, they can set up other means of communications like telephone lines or flare signals.
All right, 3 fronts we're talking about, the West, the South, and perhaps an amphibious landing. In the West, mainly American forces.
Yes.
What's their target, the sweep north?
Yes, all along the front we have over 500,000 combat troops and 3,000 tanks. Half of the tanks, the best tanks, are out there with the 14th and the 18th and the 7th Corps. They will move 2 to 3 days march north here or there, basically to cut the troops in Kuwait off from the rest of Iraq.
And there's not much Iraqi opposition out here, is there?
No, there are very few Iraqi military units out here. In fact, there's nothing out here. This is an extension of the Saudi Arabian desert.
Now, the southern front, the Saudi-Kuwaiti border, who is there?
These are primarily our Arab allies, especially the Egyptian Armored Corps over here. We have been probing these lines for several weeks. We have a pretty good idea of what shape the Iraqis in, and what they will do is a slow, methodical advance to take as many prisoners as they can.
Now, the U.S. Marines, some on the ground here on the coastline, others on ships at sea. An amphibious landing coming?
Most likely. The Marines on land, we assume they're still there, have been training for several weeks now on breaching those fortifications. The classic tactic would be for the one division of amphibious Marines to land somewhere around here, most likely below Kuwait City, and link up with the Marines coming up the superhighway, which runs along the coast.
We're talking about a massive operation here.
Exactly.
Many divisions involved. How do the commanders, General Schwarzkopf and the others, minimize casualties?
By hitting the Iraqis fast with a lot of firepower and basically shocking them into surrendering, and I think they're fairly confident they will take more prisoners than they will encounter firefights.
Now, a probable timetable. Are we talking about days here or weeks for this operation?
If it goes according to what they think will happen, in a week, most of it should be over. But remember, about 10% of the Iraqis probably will resist, so there will be fighting and there will be casualties.
James Dunnigan, thank you very much. And we'll have more news as we continue here in just one moment.
Hey, what's that?
Oh, that's that new Chevy. It's an APV.
An AP who?
Yeah, it's a code. Top secret. We're talking adjustable composite panels. See that? Zero gravity modular seats.
Oh, yeah?
Resilient mollustic cuff polyurea fenders, and it's got this...
Chevy Luna APV. A very original way more people are winning with the heartbeat.
Biorhythms.
Biorhythm?
Yeah.
Now it's easy to win with the heartbeat.
Get your little behinds in there.
All over the world, there's a ritual that takes place right before bedtime.
And don't forget to wash behind your ears.
And for over 35 years, one faucet has helped more kids get away with it.
And you two better be clean.
Or not. Delta, the way water is brought to life.
Oh no, my hair's not only going gray, now it's getting thinner. I wish they made something for gray thinning hair.
They have Grecian Plus. Grecian Plus is a fresh-smelling foam that gradually brings back natural-looking color, the famous Grecian way. But this Grecian has a big plus. It builds body for healthier, fuller-looking hair.
Your hair looks great. Feels thicker, too.
Grecian Plus, the total treatment for gray thinning hair.
How fast does Dristan nasal spray start working to clear up congestion?
Wow, this Dristan sure starts to work fast.
Dristan nasal spray starts to work in seconds.
Own a foreign car, Midas has the right brake parts in stock for practically every foreign car. And our brake technicians are trained experts, so we do the job right and right away. For foreign car brakes, nobody beats Midas. Nobody.
In Israel today, still another Scud attack launched just minutes before the deadline, the 37th attack since the start of the war. The missile was not intercepted by a Patriot missile. It landed in an open area and caused no injuries or damage. One day, when the war is over, the United States will have to deal with the reaction in the Arab world. Some Arab countries are allies of the United States. Egypt is an important one. And today, its President Hosni Mubarak appealed to Saddam Hussein to set aside personal honor, as he called it, in order for an immediate pullout from Kuwait. He said Saddam should show courage and wisdom and save the lives of the Iraqi people and army. But many Arabs in the Middle East are on Saddam Hussein's side, particularly in neighboring Jordan. In Amman, here's Dennis Murphy.
The women outside the Iraqi embassy called it a vigil for peace, but it was really a show of support for Iraq in a war that looked inevitable.
8 years of war between Iraq and Iran showed the difference. I mean, they can withstand it.
The Jordanians never seemed to believe the U.S. would actually go to war. They were horrified by the violence of the bombing of Iraq. Support for Saddam Hussein grew stronger. But today, as the clock ticked toward the deadline, 7 o'clock local time, the bluster of pro-Iraqi demonstrations was replaced by a more sober assessment of what was ahead.
I hope they change their minds. We want a peace. We don't need wars.
Lots of people's gonna die on the American side, and lots of people's gonna die on the Iraqi side. And it's all of it just waste of lives.
Amman's New York pizza parlor. Pepperoni on the table, Saddam Hussein on the wall. Deadline hour, a time for final reflections.
Nobody benefits from war. Nobody. Not Bush, not even Saddam.
A Palestinian Liberation Organization leader was one of the few we talked to who seemed steeled for a war.
History tells us revenge is sweet, vengeance is sweet.
In Jordan, Saddam is still the good guy, Bush the bad. This war is being seen widely here as the final resolution of a long-standing plot in the West to destroy Iraq and Saddam Hussein. Dennis Murphy, NBC News, Amman.
And I'll have some final thoughts in just a moment.
The temperature is well below zero this morning. Perfect to test Chevy's heartbeat. With the electrical system fully taxed, Chevy delivers reliable cold starting. After thousands of tests, an incredible 99.9% success record. With 84 models redesigned and engineered, GM is putting quality on the road.
What do professionals do when they get a clogged sink, a stopped-up shower, a backed-up tub? They just pour in the power. The professional power of professional strength liquid Drano with 3 active ingredients, the power it takes to clear really tough clogs. Professionals use the professional liquid, and now you can too. Pour in the power. Professional strength liquid Drano.
Ounce for ounce, can you mix a bowl of cereal with more vitamin and mineral nutrition than Total?
Sure. Well, that's in a bit. And we'll sprinkle some of these.
Sorry, all those put together don't add up to an equal amount of Total. For all this nutrition, nothing can top Total. Nothing.
Wow.
It begins at dawn. They've come for you, and they want what you have. It's your bed, your Serta Perfect Sleeper, but it's the most comfortable spot in the house. It's why people are saying, I want my Serta.
Eating the right foods can fill you with painful gas. That's why you may need Gas X for fast gas pain relief. Relief antacids can't give you. So eat right and feel right with Gas X.
And finally this evening, the silence before the dawn, before the battle. It will soon be dawn in Saudi Arabia, in Kuwait, and in Iraq. It is a Sunday, a day on which American men and women on the ground and their allies are likely to be at war. For almost 7 months, they and we and those on the other side of this war have lived with this drama and tragedy which now reaches its climax. For almost 7 months, we have debated what we should do, whether economic sanctions would work, and if not, whether an air war could bring victory. But embargoes, smart bombs, and the diplomats have now had their day. Now Saddam Hussein is about to get the ground war he says he welcomes. The outcome is not in doubt. The cost of it is. These past several months, we have heard a lot of talking on television from military experts and briefers, from political analysts, Saddam specialists, and government leaders. Much of it informative, little of it very comforting. But there comes a time when words fail, the talking ends, and there is the silence before the battle. George Bush's ultimatum and Saddam Hussein's rejection of it have brought us finally to that point this evening. A time for private thoughts, and yes, perhaps a prayer. That is our report on the war and our world this day, and we want to remind you that tomorrow morning we will continue NBC's coverage of the war on Sunday Today. On Meet the Press, our guest will be one of the principal planners, architects of the American role in this conflict, the President's National Security Advisor, Brent Scowcroft. I hope you'll join us tomorrow morning for Meet the Press and Sunday Today. I'm Garrett Utley. Good night for all of us at NBC News.